So apparently, the chick that he's been with that came up with the whole basketball wives show concept,
Jackie.
Jackie, had cheated on him with Chris Webber and had a baby that is now in her 20s. And she basically lied and had Doug Christie, thinking that this young lady was his daughter, when in all actuality, it was Chris Webber's baby.
So that's real news. Oh, okay.
Do y'all ever see a couple on TV that just seemed a little too perfect? Like something about them felt more like a performance than a real relationship? That's exactly how I've always felt watching Doug and Jackie Christie. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've been together since 1996. That's almost 30 years. Doug was that dude on the court blowing kisses during games, like every game, and Jackie wasn't playing either. She had them renewing their vows every single year, and you know what? A lot of folks loved them for it. They seemed like that rare couple who made it work in the public eye, especially in the NBA world where marriages fall apart all the time. But here's the thing, the more they pushed that perfect image, the more people started whispering, like, why is Jackie at every event? Why doesn't Doug ever go anywhere solo? Why the yearly vow renewals? And now those whispers are starting to make a lot more sense, because what if I told you that picture perfect love story was hiding a secret so big it might have been holding their whole marriage together by just a thread?
Jackie Christie runs his life. To the point where he was playing with the Sacramento Kings, when he out on the bench, he wasn't allowed to look up because she said she didn't want him to catch the eye of a cheerleader or somebody in the crowd. And you see this on tape because they did a whole special on him, to where he just sits down on the bench after he gets subbed out and have to do this till he gets subbed back in.
All right, y'all, let's talk about this bombshell for a second, because this part right here, it changes everything. Doug Christie, who we've seen for years praising his wife, showing up for his family, renewing vows like clockwork, was out here raising a child that wasn't even his. And the craziest part, he didn't even know. We're talking about Chantel Christie, the daughter most fans recognize from reality TV and social media. She's been right there beside Doug in interviews. He's always claimed her proudly as his daughter, and honestly, nobody ever questioned it. But recently, the internet started buzzing, and that buzz got real loud after Chantel made a quiet but very intentional move. She legally filed to change her last name, and y'all, that was the first major red flag. Because let's be real, you don't just wake up one morning and decide to change your last name. Something had to trigger that, and that something ended up being a DNA test, a test that allegedly revealed Chris Webber as her biological father. Now, when that started circulating, people really started putting the pieces together. Chantel's timing, her distance from Doug and Jackie recently, and now this legal name change, it all lines up. And I know some folks probably want to say, nah, there has to be more to it, or maybe it's just legal stuff, but let's really think about it. Would you change your name and walk away from the man you believed was your father, the one who raised you, unless you found out something life-changing? That's not just emotional. That's a decision that comes from hurt and truth. So when that DNA test got out, it made sense. It wasn't just a rumor anymore, it became a reality. And this whole time, Doug had no idea. He's been renewing vows, writing books, raising kids, being a loyal husband and dad, and all while he's unknowingly raising another man's child.
I was doing nothing but telling the truth. I heard her say it, and I repeated it. I'm grown, and I do what I want. You know who I am. I'm Jackie Christie. That ain't gonna change.
Now here's where it really gets messy, because Jackie knew about this whole situation. There's word that Jackie was never in the dark about any of this. According to what's being said, there's even a journal entry and a voicemail where she talks about keeping the truth hidden just to protect the family. Now, I get it. Some of y'all are probably thinking, Jackie wouldn't do that, she loves Doug too much. But let's step back for a second. We're talking about Jackie Christie, the same Jackie who has been running every narrative of her life like it's a TV show. The same Jackie who's always been front and center, calling the shots on basketball wives, flipping out when things don't go her way, and making sure her image and her marriage stays untouched. This is the same woman who literally renews her vows every year in front of an audience. Jackie doesn't do anything without control. She's not just the wife, she's the producer of the entire Christie brand. So if something threatened that image, you really think she'd risk it? That's exactly why a lot of folks believe she kept quiet. Because if Doug found out back then, who knows what would have happened? Maybe the brand falls apart. Maybe the reality shows will stop. Maybe Doug walks away. And for Jackie, that was probably a risk she just wasn't willing to take. And that's exactly why some folks say Doug wasn't just a husband, he was a puppet.
I need to finish what I started. And that's the only reason that I ever even stepped onto the sideline from where I was at initially, because I had to exercise some demons for myself. But more than anything is when you hear the narratives that are written by people who are not here and just have random stuff to say, it irks me because they don't know.
All right, let's really talk about this because this part right here had everybody looking at Doug sideways. Over the years, folks started to notice something kind of strange. Doug Christie was never by himself. Wherever he went, Jackie was right there. Now, at first, that kind of seems sweet, right? Especially in the NBA world, where we've seen way too many stories of cheating, divorces, and scandal. So to see a man who was so in love that he had his wife with him 24/7, some people thought it was cute. But then it started getting weird. Fans began noticing that Doug literally didn't go anywhere without Jackie, and while he'd be out there on the court during games, he was still looking up into the stands, waving to Jackie, sending her hand signs like a teenager in love. And again, that's romantic to a point, but after a while, it started feeling kinda intense. Let's just keep it real for a second. How many grown men do you know who can't go to a business meeting without their wife right there? Doug didn't even hit the gym solo. And I'm not saying husbands and wives shouldn't be close, but this close? It felt like he was being monitored. Like he wasn't just in a relationship, he was in a controlled environment. And now, looking back with all the new stuff coming out, it's making people ask the hard question, was Doug being controlled this whole time? It's like now that we know Jackie was allegedly hiding this huge secret about Chantel's paternity, everything else is being re-evaluated. Because now we gotta talk about those vow renewals. Every single year, Jackie and Doug renewed their vows. They made it a whole event, sometimes even filming it for TV. And on the surface, it looks sweet. But now, it's a distraction. Like, what if it wasn't about love at all, but about covering up the truth? Think about it. When you're hiding something, especially something that could blow up your entire marriage, you overcompensate. You go big with the public displays. You flood the timeline with romantic pictures. You do interviews about your unbreakable bond. You renew your vows every year in front of cameras so people can't possibly think your marriage is fake. It's a classic misdirection. You give the audience a love story so they don't look too closely at what's really happening behind the scenes. And that's exactly what Jackie and Doug did. They gave us romance. They gave us unity. They gave us public devotion. But under all that, the truth was cracking. However, Doug kept showing up, kept being loyal, kept defending Jackie and holding her down, even though deep down she was holding back the biggest betrayal of his life.
It's crazy. The enemy wants us to be distracted, man. You gotta put your blinders on. Stay focused, man.
All right, now let's get into the part that's had everybody side-eyeing their screen. Where's Chris Webber in all this? Because let's just be real, if you were being accused of secretly being someone's father, especially in a situation this messy and public, wouldn't you say something? Like, even if it was just, this is false, or I'm not entertaining this nonsense. But nope, Chris is ghosting the whole thing, and that's what's making people start to believe it even more. His silence feels like confirmation, because if it wasn't true, why wouldn't he clear his name? He's a public figure, he's got a reputation. He's got a wife and kids now. Why stay quiet unless there's something to hide, or at least something that's complicated enough that speaking up would only open a can of worms? Now let's not forget, Chris and Jackie used to be close. That's not a rumor, that's a fact. They were spotted at events together back in the day, and people around them always noticed they had chemistry, but Jackie went and married Doug, and that's where the official story started. But with this new DNA stuff coming out, people are rethinking all of it. Maybe Chris wasn't just some old flame. Maybe he was the guy she never really let go of. And maybe, just maybe, that's why she clung so hard to Doug. Because if the truth ever got out, the whole picture-perfect empire would collapse. And speaking of truth, Chantel just dropped a bomb of her own. Yup, Doug and Jackie's daughter is speaking out in the form of a book. And y'all, the title alone is enough to give you chills. It's called Built on Lies: My Life as Someone Else's Daughter. That's not just a catchy name, that's a statement. That's someone telling the world, I was lied to my entire life. She hasn't said a lot publicly, but in one little teaser, she said, this isn't just about who my father is, it's about finally living in truth. That says a lot without even going into detail. It tells us this isn't just about DNA, this is about identity, betrayal, and trying to rebuild your life after your whole foundation gets rocked. And guys, just think about that for a second. Imagine growing up your whole life thinking one man is your dad. You call him dad, he raises you, he loves you, and then boom, one day you find out it was never true. And your mom knew? She knew the whole time and said nothing. That's not just shocking, that's traumatizing. A person commented saying you could tell something was off with how hard they pushed that perfect image. Turns out it was all smoke and mirrors. Another one added Doug was loyal to a fault. He didn't deserve this kind of betrayal. So now we're at a crossroads. Doug hasn't spoken publicly yet, but word is he's crushed. People close to him say he's pulling away, that he's starting to really question everything. And honestly, how could he not? Meanwhile, Jackie's out here on Instagram like nothing happened, still smiling, still posting, and still living her best life. Like the truth didn't just blow up everything she's spent decades building. And the marriage, let's just say it's barely hanging on. So now that y'all know all this, what do you think? Did Jackie really manipulate Doug all these years? Was their love real, or was it all just an illusion to cover up something deeper? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want updates when this story takes its next wild turn, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn that notification bell on. You don't want to miss what's coming next.